Welcome to The Explainer. If you want to understand the wars, the instability, and pretty much all the power struggles across the Middle East, you really have to understand one central conflict. And that's the rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia. It's a shadow war that's been shaping the region for decades, and today we're going to break down exactly why.
All right, we're going to tackle this in 4 parts. First up, we'll look at the nature of this shadow rivalry, what that even means. Then we're going to rewind the clock to understand an ancient religious divide. From there, we'll see how modern politics created a major clash of kingdom versus revolution. And finally, we'll get into the proxy war battlegrounds, and that's where this rivalry gets really tragic today.
So, to get started, what exactly is a shadow rivalry? Well, here's the thing. These two incredibly powerful nations have never actually declared war on each other. Nope. Instead, their conflict plays out indirectly, fueling wars and instability way beyond their own borders.
It's one of those big questions in global politics, right? One that just keeps coming up. And look, there are a lot of factors for sure, but a huge part of the answer lies in understanding one central, kind of toxic dynamic.
Their mutual hostility is a key driver of conflict all over the Middle East. Let's put it this way. If you don't get this rivalry, you just can't understand the region. It's a massive battle for dominance. But here's the kicker. It's fought not on their own soil, but on the territory of others.
Now, this modern political rivalry is layered right on top of a religious split that happened nearly 1.5 millennia ago. So to really get the tensions of today, we have to go way, way back to the 7th century. Okay, so what's really interesting here is the scale. Just like Christianity has its big branches, like Catholics and Protestants, Islam is primarily divided into 2 main groups. You've got the Sunnis, who make up about 90% of Muslims around the world, and then you have the Shias, who represent about 10%.
The whole split, this massive historical schism, it all boils down to one single question. After the Prophet Muhammad's death, who should lead the faith? The Sunnis believed the community should elect the new leader, but the Shias argued that the leader had to come directly from the Prophet's bloodline. This one disagreement created a divide that has lasted to this day, with Saudi Arabia seeing itself as the leader of the Sunni world and Iran becoming the dominant Shia power.
And this is where those ancient religious tensions just explode into modern deadly violence. In 1987, during the Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca, Saudi forces cracked down on a large protest by Iranian pilgrims. Over 400 people died, 275 of them Iranians. The reaction in Tehran was immediate. Protesters stormed the Saudi embassy. It led to a complete break in diplomatic relations. It was just a shocking moment where that ancient schism became a modern bloodbath.
So, you've got this deep religious divide. Then, in the 20th century, you add 2 completely different political histories and worldviews on top of it. I mean, these 2 nations were forged in fundamentally opposite ways.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is actually a pretty young country, founded back in 1932. And at the time, it was an extremely poor nation. That is, until American companies discovered an unimaginable amount of oil just sitting under the sand. This led to a defining strategic alliance that shaped the whole region. The U.S. got access to oil and a military foothold, and in return, the Saudi monarchy got immense wealth and American security guarantees. It really cemented their status as a conservative, status quo power. Iran, on the other hand, went down a completely opposite path. Before 1979, it was also a pro-Western monarchy, but the Islamic Revolution, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, was a radical, total rejection of that system. This new identity was then forged in fire during the Iran hostage crisis, when the American embassy was seized. That event severed relations with the U.S. and defined Iran not as a status quo power, but as an anti-Western revolutionary power, one that was committed to exporting its ideology.
And this table just lays it all out so clearly. It really brings their differences into sharp focus. Saudi Arabia, an absolute monarchy built on a really strict conservative form of Sunni Islam called Wahhabism, and its main ally is the United States. Iran is its polar opposite, a theocratic republic, the leader of Shia Islam, and it's allied with Russia and China. It's a rivalry built on opposing foundations in pretty much every single way you can imagine.
So, how does this rivalry actually play out today? I mean, if they're not fighting each other directly, where is all this conflict happening? The answer is in other people's countries, through absolutely devastating proxy wars. And that's exactly what a proxy war is. Instead of their own armies clashing head-on, Iran and Saudi Arabia will arm, fund, and support opposing sides in another country's civil war. They use these proxies to fight for influence, turning local conflicts into brutal regional battlefields.
Yemen is maybe the most tragic and clear-cut example of this. Iran backs the Shia Houthi rebels who control the capital. In response, Saudi Arabia leads a military coalition backing the internationally recognized government. For both of them, it's a fight for a strategic foothold on the Arabian Peninsula, but the result for the Yemeni people has been one of the world's absolute worst humanitarian crises.
Over in Syria, the civil war there became another proxy battleground. Iran, along with Russia, jumped in with critical military and financial support to keep its key regional ally, President Bashar al-Assad, in power. At the same time, Saudi Arabia and its allies were funding various rebel groups trying to overthrow him, which just prolonged a brutal, horrible war for years. And this struggle for influence, it just spills out across the region. In post-war Iraq, Iran has huge power through influential Shia militias, which is a direct challenge to Saudi Arabia right next door. And in Lebanon, Iran's proxy Hezbollah has become such a dominant political and military force that Saudi Arabia has pretty much pulled its support for the Lebanese state, basically ceding influence to its rival.
So really, when you get down to it, this isn't just some geopolitical chess match between two capitals. The competition between Riyadh and Tehran acts as an engine of conflict. It directly fuels instability, it deepens sectarian divides, and it causes just immense human suffering all across the Middle East.
And that leaves us with a final thought. With new global alliances forming and economic priorities shifting away from oil, the old certainties are starting to fade. The future of the Middle East and any real potential for peace might just depend entirely on the answer to this one question.